everyone. My name is Carmelina Buda, and today I'll be presenting my capstone titled Evaluating Street Tree Equity Across the City of Brampton, using the Sustainable Forest Initiative's Urban and Community Forest Sustainability Standard as a guiding framework. I spent the summer and most of this fall working with the City of Brampton, where I collected street tree inventory data in which this research is greatly informed by. Here's a brief overview of my presentation. I will be talking about the history of Brampton. I will go over my methods and my findings while also promoting some future recommendations that Brampton can use to enhance the resilience of its urban forest as well. So Brampton was first officially recognized as a city in 1974, and it has since grown to be Ontario's third largest city, with home to more than 790,000 residents. Historically, Brampton was recognized as the flower city because it once led the world in greenhouse flower production in the early 20th century. Geographically, Brampton borders hundreds of kilometers of both urbanized lands, including the city of Mississauga, Vaughan, and Toronto, while also being directly adjacent to hundreds of kilometers of Ontario's protected greenbelt, which is shown in this map here. And as you can see, there is also 3 major watersheds that run through Brampton, which include the Credit River, the Humber River, and the Etobicoke Creek. I formulated this graph to illustrate Brampton's land uses. And as you can see, Brampton is largely dominated by residential land use. Open spaces come second, but ultimately, if you add up all of the impermeable surfaces on this graph, you can see that open spaces are largely dominated by impermeable surfaces. Here is also an ortho photo taken of Brampton's downtown core in the spring of 2025, which furthermore shows this urban and green space contrast as well. Growing population densities across the city in past decades has significantly placed pressure on Brampton's urban forests. Past disturbances such as the Emerald Ash Borer and the 2013 ice storm have furthermore impacted Brampton's urban forest canopy resilience. And to combat this, Brampton has launched a 1 million trees program, which aims to plant 1 million trees by the year 2040, which is an additional 50,000 trees annually until that year. Trees provide a plethora of ecosystem services, including temperature regulation, carbon sequestration, biodiversity, and psychological and social benefits as well. And as urbanization and greenhouse gas emissions increase, the stress of urban forests do as well. Now to talk about environmental justice. So this topic emphasizes fair and equitable access to the benefits that environments provide. In the context of urban forestry, this includes tree equity, the idea that all residents, regardless of income, race, housing type, or other social demographic factors, deserve equal access to the benefits that trees provide. Much research done across the globe, including studies done in North America, Europe, and Asia, all consistently prove that low-income and marginalized communities tend to have lower access to tree canopy coverage. This leads to unequal exposure to heat in cities, poor air quality for certain citizens, higher energy bills, and reduced psychological and social benefits as well. This capstone examines whether similarities exist across the city of Brampton. To introduce the Sustainable Forest Initiative, SFI is a nonprofit organization aimed at fostering sustainability globally. The sustainability standard that I will be using as a guiding framework is the world's first certification-based standard specifically designed for urban forests. And across the 16 objectives, which are shown on the screen here, topics typically include climate adaptation, community engagement, and biodiversity. This standard is particularly relevant to Brampton as it brings forth both environmental and social realms of environmental sustainable management. And SFI explicitly recognizes tree equity and environmental justice as essential components of sustainable urban forest management, which directly aligns with the core purpose of this capstone. Now on to my 3 objectives. I first wanted to examine and assess the City of Brampton's current state of street tree equity through a canopy coverage across the city's spatial distribution, including density and condition of street trees. The second objective is to identify relationships between income levels and the spatial distribution of street trees across the city using the Region of Peel's 2021 income census data. And lastly, to evaluate the City of Brampton's level of street tree equity using the Sustainable Forest Initiative's Urban and Community Forest Sustainability Standard as a method to promote case-based recommendations for the future. For the study area, I focused exclusively on street trees located on residential and local roads rather than parks or other open green spaces. Brampton has nearly 900 parks and hundreds of hectares of open green spaces, but including these areas would be difficult to isolate relationships between socioeconomic factors and tree equity as a whole. By concentrating on street trees, I was able to assess canopy distribution where residents live and experience the benefits of trees daily. The study area was also built using Brampton's most up-to-date street tree data set from the Davey Tree Experts Company, which is Brampton's contracted tree work group. So the city was divided into 33 grids, as you just saw on the screen. Each contained between 50 and 2,000 street trees, depending on the residential space. For the collection of data, I applied a 2% stratified random sample to each grid in ArcGIS Pro, which resulted in a maximum sample size of 40 trees per grid. And from the months of May to October 2025, I collected field data on DPH using a DPH measuring tape. I noted the species and the condition rating using Davey Tree's standardized scale, which is what you see on the board there. There is also an example of a level 6 condition rated tree, which is a dead or failed tree. And I also provided additional comments on the overall health of the trees and any potential hazards to residents as well. Now, because grid sizes vary, to analyze the data, I standardized tree density by calculating basal area per kilometer of road. Using the formula basal area per kilometer equals total basal area divided by the total road length, which is the formula that you see on the screen. This allowed for conclusions to be made on trees relative to each grid rather than the number of trees per grid. And to assess the socioeconomic relationships, I used median income values from the Region of Peel's 2021 income census data to grab the income levels per grid, which is shown on the map. Median income was chosen as the independent variable here, as I felt it would be the most accurate amongst the other options. For instance, if I were to use average or mean income, outliers could have the potential to further skew the results, which I didn't want. And I also chose to assess based on individual income rather than household income, as housing sizes and number of occupants vary drastically across the city, which I felt could also further potentially skew the results. Now to get into some of the results, analysis on basal area per grid revealed uneven distributions across the city. 2 out of 3 of the statistical tests revealed significance in the correlation between income level and basal area. Specifically, high-income grids have a mean basal area of about 8 meters squared per kilometer, while low-income grids have a mean basal area of 6 meters squared per kilometer. Both the Welch's 2-sample t-test and the ANOVA both confirmed these statistics. This box plot was further created to illustrate these discrepancies, where the black line represents the frequency, the highest frequency of points in that region, and the individual dots representing values. Based on the Pearson correlation test, finally, there was no linear relationship found between median income and basal area, suggesting that discrepancies do exist, but not in a linear fashion, which is also visualized in this graph. As per condition rating, to contrast, there was no statistical significant difference across income levels in my findings. This is a positive result that correlates, that suggests equitable maintenance and street tree care regardless of income type across the city. This is a histogram that I also created that shows these discrepancies. As you can see, there is mostly equal averages of condition ratings across income levels with slight variances, but overall nothing major showing a significance. This further indicates that street tree health and maintenance are equitably delivered across all income levels throughout the city. These results reveal 2 key insights. First, high-income neighborhoods have significantly higher basal area. Meaning that they benefit from larger and more abundant street trees. This is important because canopy cover directly influences reductions in air quality, energy costs, and overall well-being. Second, I found no statistical significance difference in condition rating across income levels, which is a positive finding again and suggests that Brampton provides equitable maintenance citywide, and the inequity lies not in how the trees are cared for, but where they are located. These patterns likely exist due to historical planning, where older, higher income areas tend to have wider boulevards, larger street trees, and more planting space, while denser or newer low-income areas have limited rights of way and more impervious surfaces, making it difficult to plant larger trees or grow larger trees. And here's a diagram that I took from Brampton's Landscape Development Guidelines from 2019 that illustrates Brampton's initiative to planting a diverse street tree composition, which can also be attributed to the adequate level of maintenance throughout the species planting, and furthermore promotes biodiversity of street trees. Building off of these results and relating it back to the SFI framework, I recommend 3 key strategies to strengthen street tree equity across Brampton. First, as Brampton is rapidly expanding its urban forest through the 1 Million Trees program, quantitative metrics that work to identify neighborhoods with the lowest canopy coverage and highest heat vulnerability are essential. By delivering a tree metric aligned with SFI objectives 1, urban forest sustainability, and 5, climate smart management, the city can ensure that new plantings annually actually reduce spatial discrepancies rather than unintentionally reinforcing them. Second, while current results demonstrate that street tree condition ratings remain relatively constant across income levels, the scale of annual plantings in Brampton requires proactive maintenance and monitoring to track survival, stress, and long-term performance of street trees, particularly in priority neighborhoods targeted for canopy improvement. And lastly, to support existing sustainability initiatives that Brampton promotes, I recommend collaboration with the Sustainable Neighborhood Action Program that works to identify and enhance environmentally vulnerable neighborhoods across the city. Integrating a formal equity-based street tree framework into the SNAP program, planning would strengthen its targeting by pairing vulnerable data with SFI principles such as community engagement, biodiversity planning, and climate resilience. To talk about some limitations, this study has several limitations, including street trees were only considered for this capstone. Parks, private property, and natural area trees were deliberately excluded. Therefore, a more holistic canopy assessment may reveal additional or different patterns. Income was also the only demographic variable that was studied in this capstone, and results again may differ if race or other socio-demographic factors were also included in this study. And lastly, the census data was from 2021 income levels. And as we know, the economic state of the world has drastically changed since then. So a more up-to-date study would probably be better to include a more up-to-date income level. To conclude, my research proves spatial discrepancies in Brampton street canopy. With higher income areas benefiting from the ecosystem services provided by trees, low-income communities are inevitably threatened by the impacts of climate change. As maintenance and tree care levels are positively consistent across all grids, Brampton does a great job at caring for the urban forest. To conclude, my recommendations promote an approach that is equitable, data-driven, climate adaptive, and aligned with the SFI's broader framework of sustainability outcomes. Through proactive monitoring, diverse species selection, and targeted planting informed by vulnerability indicators, Brampton can continue achieving a more just and resilient, sustainable street tree canopy across all neighborhoods. Thank you. I welcome any questions.
Any supervisor on that?
I didn't see Adam or Meagan. No, you can ask. They're not. They're not. Okay.
Okay, so
Great
that,
teacher.
okay, so right, so we'll move on to the internal supervisor.
Yeah, thank you for this was it's good to see your work this morning. I'm not going to ask you let's put it this way. If I ask you how clean Brampton streets, when you say they're green, they're not green or a mix?
Overall, I think they are green. I know Brampton, last time I checked, had an 18% canopy coverage across the whole city. And I know it's largely dominated by residential spaces. So I think to put it in perspective, I don't know, when I was out there, it looked pretty green.
Okay, and you were mentioning that there is a difference between, it seems, more open part of the city has a larger players, but it's also linked with the income, right?
Yes.
What about, I know that you didn't do new subdivision. Do you have any idea what's going on there? Like, you know, how many trees they are planting, the size of the trees?
I don't have exact metrics, but I did include some of the newer subdivisions in my work. From what I saw, there was some newer subdivisions having a lot denser neighborhoods in general, like a lot denser residential spaces, and some newer subdivisions were mansions and like a higher income. So I think it ultimately just relates down to space, and income at the same time.
And I mean, it's great to look at the activity,
Sorry.
the activity of, how green our streets for people, and it's great to hear that Brampton, it seems that they are managing it well, so there is no difference in that sense. I'm just curious from your perspective, this is a snapshot in time, right? What's your feeling, how green those streets are going to be made, and what's the longevity of this activity? Like, what happens, like, what happens to those old parts of the city?
Yeah.
Will the newer parts of the city ever reach the maximum canopy?
I think that so far from what I've learned working with the city of Brampton during the 1 million trees program, they are kind of more focusing their plantings on open spaces rather than streets. There's only so much planting to be done in streets, which we know. But I think overall, integrating a metric that quantifies these inequities could help Brampton a lot in future planting and would make it easier to draw those connections between vulnerable areas with less tree canopy and then promote them in the future to gain that canopy as well.
If you have feeling, let's say, for how long, that would, high income part, if high canopy, for how long that is going to stay like that? That metric will change over time,
Yeah.
right?
Hopefully not long. I feel like, with the systems that they have in place, there should be more access to trees and bigger trees, as trees grow, obviously. And yeah, I just hope not long.
Thank you, Danijela. Do we have other questions? From
We have
online?
online, yeah.
Okay. Are you
It's,
going to
I
read
can
that?
say it, yeah. Okay, so online, Victoria, great presentation, Carmelina. One question, how long did the sample take to collect throughout the duration of your co-op?
So I started collecting street trees in May and I'm still collecting street trees right now. So I'm not done. This was only like half of the city as well, so it's gonna take a while. But we are starting with phase 2, which is park trees, I can say that.
Okay, so several trees.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, more questions? Kristen?
Thanks, Peter. Great job, Carmelina.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed it. And I was wondering about the open spaces a bit more. You said they're not, like, they're pretty impermeable. Do you want to describe them a bit?
I didn't mean that open spaces were impermeable. I meant like the ratio between open spaces when compared to the impermeable surfaces, there's a divide. Yeah.
So are they truly, what do you do in that?
I can go back to it.
Yeah, maybe I just,
That's fine. And then like on the pillars. Oh, right here.
right.
I meant that it's largely dominated by residential areas. But if you look at all the rest of the graphs, except the open spaces, if you add them all up, they are mostly impermeable and they mostly outweigh the amount of open spaces in Brampton.
So the open spaces are parks,
Yes, open spaces are parks, yes.
pretty much.
Yeah, for the most part, open and green spaces.
Golf courses.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
non-impermeable surfaces.
Yeah. I was just trying to understand that, actually, and the second question I had, pretty surprised that, forest or tree health was fairly constant over the income level.
I was, yeah, when I was
Was.
out there, oh, sorry.
Why?
Oh, when I was out there doing inventory, I was like, oh, my capstone is gonna be great because I'm seeing these divides, or so I thought, but in reality, it was just consistently across them. So I thought that there would be a different outcome, but I'm glad that there wasn't, because it is a positive outcome that maintenance is divided across the city equally.
Right, and so what was your prediction that it would be different?
I thought that higher income areas had like much larger and older trees, so the newer income areas, or sorry, the lower income areas tended to have smaller and more frail trees, so I thought that there would be a divide, which there wasn't.
Right, and do you think that might be an artifact of how they score tree health? Like, I mean, it's quite a complex system that they have, sometimes to use a simpler system.
Yeah, It might be, mostly the trees. I can go back to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is kind of subjective, but I think as foresters, we have a pretty good idea, of how to mark them, so. Yeah, when I was out there, I did see some divides, but ultimately, using the scale, it was very descriptive to me, I felt.
Okay, I just, very good and good versus.
Yeah.
Versus each other, poor and very poor.
Yeah,
So it'd be nice to know. That's great.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. More questions?
Oh. I had a general question pertaining to the difference in its built form between the lower income neighborhoods and the higher ones.
Yeah.
So for representation, you were saying lower income ones, the newer subdivisions, right?
Yes,
So would it be possible that like within those neighborhoods, the tree health is typically poorer at their deviation stuff because they were built sooner, so the trees don't have much been established?
yes, and I think that's also the same with, tree density in basal area as well, because we are seeing that the older and higher income neighborhoods have larger and more abundant street trees, so I think it goes both ways with that as well.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Very interesting. I wanted to look at the kind of patterns you found. It looked like the difference in your statistics was essentially that there's a dip,
Yes,
right? So medium income group is actually showing lower basal area. Right? So there's this apparent nonlinear pattern. Why do you think that would be? Why would medium income have particularly, is that something related to the time, how recently things are developed?
it might be, yeah, I don't really know specifically, but if I had to guess, I think overall spacing is just a big thing. Medium income could mean, different differences across spacing as well. But I think the overall thing I wanted to highlight was that there is differences across the city. So there is inequities. Not always is it going to be low income versus high income. It could be median income versus high income as well. Yeah.
But there's some of those low income areas that have quite high,
There are,
right? Those are among, we look at the top cover there in top basal area
Yeah.
is in the highest, but then there's 3 of those low income communities that stand out as that really high.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know, I think in all data, there could be potential outliers that just kind of don't fit the norm. But I think overall, it's just a case-based kind of thing with each grid that we have to look at.
Thank you. More questions? Yes, what? Oh, gotta get around there.
Yeah, so I have two. So the first is, can you elaborate on why you use individual income as opposed to family income or property value when families put their money to buy houses and many people live above or below their means as well?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I wanted to look at individual income because housing type does vary across the city. And I didn't want that to be something that I based the research on. Number of occupants in Brampton differs with each house, so I didn't feel like it was fair. Some people could be living in a large house just by themselves, but we wouldn't know that, unless we're looking at individual income as well.
Also, do you think having a private fee contractor improving the results?
I think that they might have actually made them better. I know Brampton puts a lot of tree care into their contracting work, so the condition rating, having a second asset like a contract group to go out and get that maintenance done is very beneficial and also saves time from us doing it by ourselves, but having a contracted expert group to do that maintenance is very beneficial, I think.
Right, more questions? For Carmelina. Okay, thank you very much, Carmelina.